sure that they're amber in color. Also, we're going to make sure that they function correctly. They should be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, and not broken. Okay. From there, we're going to go ahead and move to our windshields. On our windshield, we're checking for no cracks, no stickers. They must be clean, and they shouldn't have any obstructions. Now, the same way we check our windows is the exact same way we're going to check all the windows on the vehicle. That's on all sides. The exact same way we checked our clearance lights is the exact same way we're going to check all the lights on the vehicle. Okay. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our mirrors. We have the driver's side and the passenger side. We also have the blind spot mirrors up here in the front. On those mirrors, they have to be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, and not broken. They must be clean. They must have no stickers, and they must okay, so you check on the top mirrors. Those are flat mirrors. Those flat mirrors are used to see 200 feet behind the vehicle, in other words, long distance. Okay, and the round mirror, which is a convex, is used to see wide angles. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and move down to our lights. We have two lights, which is high beam and low beam. And then on the lights, we check that they're properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. They must function correctly. Okay, and then from there we're going to go to our turn signals. The same way we checked our clearance lights is the exact same way we would check these. Properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. They must be amber in color, and they must function correctly. Okay, from there we're going to go and step down this way. We're going to go to our license plate. The license plate has to be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. It must be clean and legible. Okay, from there we go underneath the vehicle. We're going to look for any kind of stains greater than the size of your hand. That would indicate that there's a major leak. Okay, from there now we're going to go ahead and move into the engine compartment. From here, I'm going to go through the parts, and I'm going to show, not go through all of them. I'm going to talk about like the reservoirs. All the reservoirs would be checked the exact same way. All the hoses would also be checked the exact same way. So if it's a metal component, I'm going to talk about one. So I'm going to show you guys how to inspect it and what to inspect out of it. Okay. So let me give you an example right here. This is our engine coolant reservoir. Okay. It must be properly mounted. In other words, all the bolts must be present. It shouldn't be cracked, bent, or broken. No leaks. And it must be filled above the refill level. Okay? The cap must be present. Not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing. And must be properly hand tightened. Now the exact same way we inspected that one is the exact same way we'd inspect the windshield washer fluid reservoir, the power steering fluid reservoir. Okay, so all the reservoirs on the vehicle are to be checked the exact same way. So I'm not going to elaborate on them. Now I'm going to go into some parts and show you guys on the parts what I'm talking about. So like I said, all those parts are all the reservoirs are being checked the exact same way. Okay. Now from there, we're going to go to our radiator stabilizer arms. Make sure that they're properly mounted, that they're not cracked, bent, or broken. Okay, and on these we have 4, 2 on this side and 2 on the passenger side. Okay. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our radiator. The radiator contains water in it from the water coolant reservoir. Okay, so on that one, make sure that it's properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, not broken, and no leaks. Now, it does have hoses. It has a hose up here, and it has a hole on the bottom of the vehicle. I mean, on the bottom of the radiator. So the hoses must be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. No leaks, and no visual damage on the hoses. Now, the exact same way I check the hoses there is the exact same way I'd inspect every other hose on the vehicle. Now, what might change is that some hoses carry liquid inside them, while other hoses carry air through them. So, depending what could be inside the hose, liquid or oxygen, I guess, because it's air running through the hose, then that's what varies in that hose. But all hoses must be checked for leaks, and they must not have any cuts, cracks, and they must be properly mounted. Okay, from there, guys, we will go to our power steering fluid power steering pump, sorry. Power steering pump must be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Now, since power steering fluid flows inside it, then you must check it for leaks. So anything that has fluid running through it, like a metal component that has fluid running through it, must be checked for leaks. The same way I inspected that metal component is the exact same way you're going to inspect everything on the vehicle. So every component that you see that's a metal component, if it has fluid or air, like the air compressor, make sure you check it the exact same way. I'm going to repeat that again. Must be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, and not broken. Okay? No leaks and no missing bolts. Okay? So that would be the exact same way I would check the air compressor, and I would also check on the starter. Okay? Now, on the starter, it doesn't contain any liquid inside, so you wouldn't check for any leaks inside it. Okay? But everything else would be the same. Everything else that you would inspect on it. Now, the 3 things that are gear driven are the starter, the air compressor, and the power steering pump. Those are the 3 things that are gear driven. Okay, now on the other side of the vehicle, we'll get to it right now. There's also 3 things that are belt driven, which are the AC compressor, the alternator, and the water pump. Okay, so those are the 3 things that are belt driven. Those things would also be checked the exact same way. Like I said, if it's a metal component, like a metal component that sticks onto the engine compartment, then it must be checked the exact same way. properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, not broken. If it has fluid inside, make sure you check for leaks. Any kind of fluid, air or liquid. Okay, so from there, guys, there's a few other things that I'm not naming. They're simple things. I'm kind of not going through them because they're like the engine oil fill cap, the engine oil dipstick. It must be checked for properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and it must be filled. The oil level must be filled above the level. Okay, so those things will be checked. The air compressor, I didn't check the hoses, but like I said, all the hoses, like I inspected them on the radiator, they must be checked the exact same way. Must be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, not broken, no leaks, and that's it. From there, guys, we will go to our steering components. Okay, so our steering components would be right here. This would be our steering column. Real quick, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. On the engine, I forgot one thing to mention, which is on the belts. This would be our belt right in here. The belts, I didn't elaborate on them, so let me go ahead and go back and talk about them. The belts must be properly mounted. They cannot be frayed, not cracked, and no more than 3/4 of an inch in play in the center of the belt. Okay, that is one of the things I forgot to mention, but making sure that you understand that there shouldn't be no more than 1/4 of an inch in play in that belt. All right. From there, we're gonna go ahead and go to our steering components. The steering components would be our steering column. Okay, must be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no more than 2 inches of play or 10 degrees. Okay, from there we have the U-joints. Everything must be checked for not cracked, bent, or broken. Okay, and then from here we have our gearbox. Now, since it's a metal component, it's checked the exact same way like I told you on the air compressor, the power steering pump. But you see how we have hoses? The hoses would be checked the exact same way as we spoke earlier. The gearbox would be checked the exact same way on the metal components. Properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, not broken, and no leaks, because it has fluid inside it. It also connects through the hose to a reservoir. So I'm not going to go back through the reservoir. I'm going to just kind of breeze through it. But we would also check it the same way we checked all the other reservoirs at the same time. So from there, we're going to go ahead and go to our pitman arm. It must be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, and not broken. Okay, it's connected to the drag link. The drag link, which would be connected with a castle nut and a cotter pin. The drag link must be checked for no crack, not bent, and not broken. Okay, the drag link connects to the steering knuckle. Okay, the steering knuckle must be checked the exact same way, not cracked, not bent, not broken. And it also is connected through a castle nut and a cotter pin. Okay, from there you also have the tie rod. The tie rod is located right here. The tie rod must be properly mounted from both ends. Not cracked, not bent, and not broken. Okay, it also has two castle nut on each end and a cotter pin. That concludes our steering components. Now we have two more parts that we have to finish off. We have the suspension. We gotta move this here a little bit. The suspension parts would be right here. The suspension parts would be the frame, not cracked, bent, no holes, and no illegal welds. Okay. From there we have the lift spring mounts. Properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Okay. From there we have the lift spring. The lift springs we have, they must be properly mounted from both ends. Not cracked, not bent, not broken. Okay. Now, from there we have the U-bolts. You have two on this side and two on the passenger side. They must be properly mounted, not loose, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no missing bolts underneath. Okay? From there, that's connected to the steering axle. Okay? So the steering axle must be checked for not cracked, not bent, not broken, and no illegal welds. Okay? From there we have the shock absorber, which is this yellow one. The shock absorber must be properly mounted and should not have any leaks. That concludes our suspension system. Okay? Now we're going to go and do our braking system. Okay? So we have the hose, which we've already inspected before. So the hoses, we inspect them the exact same way. We're going to check the brake chamber. The brake chamber must be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, or broken. And since it has air, it must be checked for leaks. Okay, so from there we have the push rod. Should be properly mounted, not cracked, not bent, and not broken, and no more than 1 inch of play when the brakes are released. Okay, from there we go to the slack adjuster. The slack adjuster properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. It must be properly greased. Since it's a moving component, it needs grease to function correctly. If it's not greased, then it won't come back and it'll stay stuck somewhere. So make sure it's properly greased. From there we have the brake cam. The brake cam should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Okay. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our brake lining. Those would be our brake pads. Okay. The brake pads should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing. Okay, and they shouldn't be less than 1/4 of an inch in thickness. Okay, from there we're going to go and go to our brake drum. The brake drum should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no illegal welds. And no contaminants or debris. By that I mean oil or any like a rat's nest or anything like that that would cause a fire with the friction of the brake. Okay, so from there, that would conclude our braking system. Now I'm gonna go ahead and check the tire, and like that, you have the inspection on the tire. Okay, so the tire, we're gonna go ahead and start right here at the center of the tire. This is called an oil hub reservoir. On our steering tires, we have the oil hub reservoir. If it has to add oil, then it's a reservoir. So it would be checked exactly the same way we checked on the reservoirs up here. Okay, so the only thing on this one, we would also check the cap and the fluid level to make sure it's at proper level. And then from there, we're also gonna check the lug nuts. Must be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing. No rust or metal shavings, indicating that the lug nuts are loose. From there, we check the rim, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no illegal welds on it. From there, we're going to check the valve stem. The valve stem must be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and the valve cap must be present, and it shouldn't have any leaks. Okay, so that's how we check the rim. Now we're going to go into the tire. The tire, we check the walls. We're checking both sides, the outside and the inside. Okay, so on the walls, we're checking for no bubbles, no cuts, and no missing chunks of tires. Okay, and when we check the top of the tire, we're checking that the tire is evenly worn. We're gonna check the air pressure. On the steering tires, the pressure should be 110 pounds of pressure. If you're asked how do you check the air pressure, you say with an air gauge, not by kicking the tire. That is not permitted. You must check it with a gauge. Okay. From there, we're also going to check that the tire depth is more than 432s in depth. On your drive tires, it would be 232s in depth. And the air pressure varies over there. It varies from 100 to 110 pounds. Okay. Also on the front steer tires, make sure that there's no recap. Alrighty. Now, kind of the same thing we talked about. All these things right here from the suspension to the braking system to the tires. Everything on this side of the engine is the exact same we inspect on the other side of the engine compartment. So in other words, we would check the passenger side, all the same components, the same suspension, the same braking system, the same tire system. So everything would be checked the exact same way. Guys, just remember, like I said, a lot of the parts are just repetition. You check everything about the same way. You have reservoirs, you have hoses. Electrical lines are checked a little bit different. The electrical lines, I don't know if I spoke about them, but let me go ahead and elaborate on it a little bit on them. They must be properly mounted. In other words, they can't be loose, not cracked, bent, broken, or frayed. People will ask what frayed means. Frayed means when one hose rubs against another hose, then that will create an indentation into the other hose, and that's what you call frayed. So when one hose rubs against another one, or it doesn't have to be one hose with another, it could be one hose with a metal part, then eventually it starts fraying, you start seeing those little hairs on the hose, then that's considered frayed. Okay? From there, the hoses we would inspect them the same way. Electrical lines are inspected the same way. All metal components are inspected the same way. Remember, if they have fluid inside, then you would check for fluid leaks. Or if they have air, then make sure you check for air leaks. And thank you guys for watching. And that concludes our ASL Texas pre-trip inspection. And we will see you guys later. Please leave a comment and we will get back to you. We'll answer any questions that you may have on this video. If you leave a question, we'll answer and we'll try and help you guys out. Thank you so much, and you guys have a good day.